Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and welcome to episode 28 of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. Surprisingly enough, you do not see my happy face in front of you. Who you do see is Henry Pugh, who I'm thrilled to have as my guest today. Henry is the CEO of the Risk Advisory Group out of London. I would love to be able to tell you that this podcast is coming from London, but unfortunately I can't. It's coming from my office in Houston, because Henry and his colleagues are down here in Houston visiting some folks down here, and I was able to encourage him to come by and visit with me about what he does for the Risk Advisory Group and what they do for the broader compliance community and some energy companies here in Houston. So, Henry, I'd first like to thank you for coming down.
It's a pleasure, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, ask you if you could tell the audience a little bit about yourself and then your role at the Risk Advisory Group.
Sure. Well, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Risk Advisory Group and have been for the last couple of years. I've been at the firm for 14 years. The firm's been going 15 years, founded in 1998 in London and Moscow, and now we're expanded around the world, have an office in Washington, D.C., and many clients here in Houston, so very happy to be here in Houston to meet some of them and other friends and contacts here like you, Tom. Before I was at the Risk Advisory Group, I worked for the British Ministry of Defence in London, where I was working as a policy civil servant there. Did 7 or 8 years of that, and then left and joined this company when it was a little startup 14 years ago.
Did you go to university in the United Kingdom?
I did go to university in the UK. I was at a university in the Midlands in England, and then joined the Ministry of Defence straight out of university.
And where did you grow up in England?
Well, I'm from Hampshire, Tom, where I believe your wife is from as well. I was born in Winchester, Hampshire, and I know your wife is from down the road in Hayling Island. So we have that in common.
Okay. Well, one of the things that has intrigued me about the type of work that your company does is obviously you play in the anti-corruption and anti-bribery space. So perhaps you could tell the audience a little bit about the services the Risk Advisory Group could bring to people like myself or energy companies in Houston, or indeed anyone across the globe who's doing business internationally.
Sure. Well, the main service we provide to the compliance professional is business intelligence, we term it. Essentially, gathering information, doing research, doing investigations to support our clients' business decisions. We provide assessments usually of people or companies that our clients are going into business with. They might be people they're forming a joint venture with, it might be an acquisition, an investment, might be appointing an agent, and we help our clients to really properly understand the FCPA, other anti-corruption, wider compliance risks associated with going into business with that organisation. We also provide risk assessments around anti-corruption. We can maybe look at the risks in a particular industry, in a new market which a client is going into. We can look, for example, at the risks associated with the customs clearance process in Nigeria or the award of oil licenses in Indonesia. If we have a client who is going to be doing more of those types of activities, we can advise them of what the risks are in the compliance risks associated with going into those lines of business. The company does a few other things as well. We provide security assessments, security management. We help clients with litigation cases, and we also do employee screening. But my role at the company and the area of greatest interaction with the compliance world is in due diligence and business intelligence more generally.
Does the company have assets across the globe that they can call upon to do the actual spade work, or do you try to do the work out of London?
We have offices around the world, 6 offices around the world, from Hong Kong in the east through to Washington D.C. in the west, also Moscow, London, Al-Khabar in Saudi Arabia, and Dubai. That's our office network, and that's where our in-house resources are based. There's about 120 people in the company, of whom about half are engaged in doing due diligence and business intelligence work. They are drawn from a wide range of nationalities, and we speak many languages between us in the company. and we're very good at doing the research, primary research ourselves, and we do as much as we can in-house. But yes, obviously, to do due diligence around the world, you need a network of local contacts, local associates, and we have many hundreds of those who we can call on from time to time to provide pieces of information as part of our research projects. And using those contracted assets, using our own in-house resources, our language abilities, our research abilities, we can carry out work and have carried out work in something like 160 different countries around the world.
You've used the term business intelligence a couple of times. Could you really explain to the audience what's the difference between business intelligence and then something that perhaps a little more focused like due diligence that you might engage in?
Well, for us, business intelligence is the service where you gather information, you do research, you do investigations around the world to assess the situation in support of your clients' business decisions. It so happens that for the compliance world in particular, the due diligence aspect of that is probably the most prominent of it. But we would include within the business intelligence world such things as competitor information, gathering information about what your competitors are doing. We would include new market entry studies. Is it propitious for us to enter the Angolan oil and gas market? What are the risks associated with doing that? These are issues which kind of go broader than due diligence, even if you might use some of the same information gathering tools to do it. But yes, business intelligence is a kind of a wider term, but due diligence for the compliance professional is one of the best known sub-services within the business intelligence field.
You also spoke about anti-bribery and anti-corruption risk in a context broader than simply due diligence, and that was you could look at a particular process in a country to see if it was fraught with corruption, or what might be some of the government touch points where pressure could be brought to bear for licenses or other things. Could you describe that type of business intelligence or research rather than simply straight due diligence?
Well, there we would be calling on some of the same research tools, so the ability to extract information from the public domain, but more importantly, the ability to speak to people in the country concerned, local associates in the country concerned, or people outside the country who know how it operates. Typically, the client would have a specific issue. We are looking to win business from this government ministry. We're looking to enter this particular market. We want to know about the level of corruption among the people we might be competing with in this sector. Fairly specific questions about some aspect of the industrial or the commercial landscape or the political landscape in that country. And we would use those research tools, use our local contacts, use our information gathering techniques to find information which helps our clients to understand what the issues are there. We might speak to people in and around the relevant ministry if it's a kind of government-related issue. We might speak to people who know how some of the competitors operate in that market. But the overall objective would be to gather information and make an assessment which helps our clients to decide on its way ahead. We would be providing the information, maybe providing a recommendation, but it's obviously up to the client to make the decision, and we give them the fact base, the knowledge base on which to proceed.
It sounds like that your client base is certainly going to be broader than the compliance department, a chief compliance officer or compliance practitioner, and there would be other disciplines within the C-suite that would need your services or that you could work with in developing a report, like a CFO or CEO and that sort of thing.
Yes, it certainly does. Just some examples, we do quite a lot of work when companies are making an acquisition, buying a new business, maybe in a new country or a new sector of their industry. There we would be working more for a dedicated M&A team, or maybe the CFO, maybe some business development role. Some companies route a lot of their due diligence or business intelligence work through their security department. Maybe they might have an internal client who is in a compliance function, but we would be interacting with the security people. and that's fine. We do a lot of work for people in that role, as well as providing more sort of security-oriented services for them. We do a lot of work for the financial services sector, so compliance there comes in different guises. It might be the anti-money laundering function, people who sort of regulate how trading operates. So it could be a wide range of people. Sometimes even HR departments, if they're appointing a senior, a very senior new person to the business, they might ask us to do due diligence on that person. And as I say, that we could be working for HR in that capacity. Or it could be, even the chairman or the chief executive making a, really key strategic decision, maybe an appointment, maybe an acquisition. We'd be working for them. So a whole variety of people. Compliance officers are an important part of that, and I guess the sort of wider legal function. If compliance isn't always rooted in the legal department, but the legal department is an important part of who we're working for, but by no means the only part of the client base of the company.
One of the key requirements or key best practices, perhaps better put, in FCPA and Bribery Act compliance programs is to document everything you've done, so that in the due diligence world you document who you've looked at, you document where you've looked at them, you document how you looked at them. And that's certainly one type of report, but within the scope of services that you all deliver, are there companies that would prefer an oral report or some other type of report rather than a very thick, documented, written file?
That does sometimes happen. To be honest, almost everybody needs the written report for the file. The only time a client may not want that is if you found some problem with an acquisition target or a new agent or something. If you found a really serious problem, if we have found a really serious compliance problem, then the client may at that stage say, okay, we don't want the written report, thank you, we're just grateful for the oral summary of the bad news, and then we don't have to go through the process of writing the report. Almost all of the time, well over 99% of the time, the client does need a written report, we are certainly in a position where everything that we do, everything that we find, we're happy to write it down. All our information is gathered in through legal means. Everything that we do is stuff that we're happy to see documented. On rare occasions, as you indicate, a client may not want it in writing, but almost always they do.
One of the things that we've just finished discussing is due diligence in pre-acquisition for M&A work. That area has become much more scrutinized now under certainly the FCPA on the pre-acquisition front. Most U.S. companies thought they understood the sort of rules or guidelines for post-acquisition integration, but now the Department of Justice is asking companies to focus on the pre-acquisition due diligence. Is this something you guys have done all along, or have you seen some sort of uptick in looking at an acquisition candidate from a compliance angle in the last 18 to 24 months?
I'd say the trend there, well, there's a macro trend, which is there's probably a bit less acquisition activity going on, and has been less acquisition activity going on for the last few years than was the case in the 2000s. So there's a kind of big level trend there. But leaving that point to one side, I'd say the biggest trend we would notice is that people, even at the pre-acquisition stage, are now much more interested, not just in the company themselves, and we've been engaged to work on that for many years, but are also interested in the next level down. So the agents of the company, the subcontractors of the company, already in the pre-acquisition stage, they might be reviewing who some of these people are, whether there are any kind of particular problems associated with them. So we could be asked if a company has, I don't know, 2 dozen key agents, maybe in particular high-risk countries. We might be asked to look at those agents. They're not directly the acquisition itself, but we could be brought in to look at that. That's something people were not doing 5 or 10 years ago at the pre-acquisition stage, but it's something we've seen an increasing amount of. Another issue on the pre-acquisition part of the process is that people are much more using forensic specialists. We don't have forensic accountants ourselves, but we sometimes get involved as part of that process too. Generally, people are just doing a heck of a lot more work in the pre-acquisition space, and that can include doing kind of forensic reviews of what the subject is up to. So we've always done a lot of work, but it has changed a bit over the last 2 or 3 years, as you say.
Over the past year or two, are there any general trends that you've seen that you could share with us?
Well, I think it's not just for the past couple of years, for the 15 years I've been doing this, just the amount of due diligence going on, the pressure on people to do due diligence, the attention on how they do the due diligence, and the amount of it they do and the stage of the business process they do it, that's just kept on growing and growing. Many recent judgments in the FCPA settlements have seen the DOJ or the SEC comment on a company's due diligence process, usually critically, but in 1 or 2 cases in a complimentary fashion, and just the level of interest in it and the amount of it going on has expanded. That's great for us, obviously, but there have been a whole load of new entrants into the market as well. It's a much more crowded business than it was when I started, or when our company was started back in the late 90s. I think one other factor I'd say is that just the level of sophistication among clients has got much higher. Particularly around here in Houston, the oil and gas community, and particularly the majors and the big sort of E&P companies, have been doing this for many years now, and they're more challenging and more sophisticated clients for us as a result. They might buy services from different companies. There's all sorts of different offerings available on the market, some more automated, some more sort of higher value added. They might use many different suppliers, and they're much more interested in getting a much more sort of educated buyer of the services. That's certainly something that we've noticed.
Well, from my perspective, having a sophisticated client is always a pleasure because they generally know what they're doing, they know what they want, and they can not only take your information and synthesize it, but I've found they can challenge you to really bring your game up to bring the top level of information and dialogue with them on a go-forward basis. Would that be similar to your experience?
Yes. Well, having said that, though, there's a lot of variation within that. I mean, I think the Houston oil and gas compliance community is probably among the most sophisticated in the world. There are different parts of the business chain, different industry sectors where compliance is only recently becoming an issue for them to focus on. Levels of sophistication do vary. But yes, we much prefer to be engaged with a client who's kind of really, reading our reports, interested in what we're doing, interested in the methodology, coming up with ideas for ways to do it in a better way, but really kind of engaged with our findings rather than just treating compliance as a kind of tick-boxy process where nobody kind of is too interested in the substance. They just need to have the report on file just in case. So that's good for us too.
Well, we're at the end of our time to visit, but I was wondering if a listener, wanted to find out more information about Risk Advisory Group, where might they go?
Well, they can contact us through our website, www.riskadvisory.net. There's a whole lot of information there, publications we provide, more information on our services, and there's a contact us facility there, and you can get in touch with us through that. We have offices around the world, and the closest one will get back in touch with you quickly and deal with whatever information requirement you have.
Well, I really want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to stop by and visit with us, and I look forward to visiting with you again.
Look forward to seeing you back in London or next time in Houston.
Great.
Thanks.